very different from the college mindset. It is even very different from the PhD thesis mindset. So the BRC mindset, which I would call the Baba mindset, is look at the education available today, all the information you have, can you process and put it to use?
The core research and finding was used to help common man beyond the nuclear energy and the atom bomb.
You may have a lot of scientific knowledge. You would have published any number of papers. You would have double PhDs on the subject. That will not help you to move to the technology side. So, although the relationship between science and technology is not a linear relation, in fact, the basic nuclear mission of BARC was to use atomic energy for peaceful purposes. Swaminathan, being an agricultural geneticist, he also brought this revolution. So these are two great sparks of Indian legacy: the Green Revolution by Swaminathan and the White Revolution by Kurian. They were showing, I would say they are classic things in them. And if these models are replicated,
Welcome to the show, sir.
thank you.
We've been interacting a lot about multidisciplinary learning, STEAM, STEM, and you've been a guru, guide, and mentor for me in understanding the nuances of science education, science communication, and especially the biggest challenge that I see in today in education is that teachers are teaching. They are not bothered about the frontier research. They are not bothered about the next wave of technology that is changing lives, that is impacting society. So, looking at science and technology as twin brothers, I want to ask you something silly. While you were at BIRC, what are those discoveries or inventions that was done in BARC or maybe invented in BARC that were shared with the society, that was used to help improve the lives of common man? Any such experiences that you remember where the core research and finding was used to help common man beyond the nuclear energy and the atom bombs?
Very interesting way to look at education. I am a product of education, but I am an accidental byproduct of education. The education which I received, which I acquired, is not a predetermined course through which I have traveled. Circumstances come, we respond to that, we pick up knowledge. That's how we went. When you asked about specific discoveries or inventions which have an impact on society, I find there is a big difference. We are not trained or tutored to produce a product or a service. What BRC has given us is an inventive mind, a mindset which enables you to pick up data, process any data, and bring out a product. So that is very, very different from a specific product. All the time looking for information, validating or falsifying an information, and with the given information, processing it, can you deliver a product? So this is the mindset which is very different from the college mindset. It is even very different from the PhD thesis mindset. So the BRC mindset, which I would call the Baba mindset, is look at the education available today, all the information you have, can you process and put it to use? That is precisely a mindset which Dr. Baba has done. If I look at my own colleagues and how they have this Baba culture imbibed into them, for example, the reactors, whatever is known about the reactors, they have collected and put it together. For example, I particularly remember a phosphorus plant. India has not built any electrothermal phosphorus plant. But looking at the literature on phosphate technology, my colleagues prepared a plant and operated it. So that ability, that is what I call from science to technology. This is where the transition happens. You may have a lot of scientific knowledge. You would have published any number of papers. You would have double PhDs on the subject. that will not help you to move to the technology side. So, although the relationship between science and technology is not a linear relationship, you need a mindset. In fact, there is also a difference between a scientific mindset and an engineering mindset. You always need an engineering mindset to deliver the goods. So, I would say this is a whole packet, but in a knowledge economy, information is available and scientists are said to be producers of knowledge. But that knowledge by one scientist is not sufficient to produce a product. So you need from multiple sources, and multiple sources may not converge to something. So looking for this convergence, this design thinking, that is what the inventive, what I call the inventive mindset of the Baba culture, which I have acquired at least in part. So this is my overall response to your very specific question. What are the things you remember as having discovered or invented? I will not have a inventory list of that. But for every product, I would have given my contribution in my own way.
So, as a product of BIRC, as a part of BIRC, as a scientist, as a researcher, as a nuclear physicist, so I think there are a lot of research that is happening in BIRC, a lot of inventions that is happening in BIRC. You're part of a lot of projects. This is a brilliant space where you can actually impact the nation, impact the society at large, specifically products that you invented, you in a sense BIRC invented or discovered, and that was commercialized in India to impact the common man. Do you remember any such stories?
In fact, the basic nuclear mission of BARC was to use atomic energy for peaceful purposes, atom for peace. That is why the conference in 1955, which Dr. Baba presided over, is called Atom for Peace. And in Atom for Peace, there is a classic statement which Dr. Baba said, no power is costlier than power.
No power,
Is costlier than no power.
no power is costlier
No,
than no
no power.
power.
Apparently, it looks like a paradoxical statement. What he said in essence was, if you cannot produce power, you can't do anything.
Enough power.
And whatever be the cost of power, the
Yes.
cost of powerlessness is pretty bad. So, no matter what the economic value or cost or price of power, pay for it but produce power. So, production of power was his objective because he believes that human development depends on the energy we consume. And there is a strong correlation between gross domestic product and per capita energy consumption. So he said per capita energy consumption should increase. You should produce power. So you should produce nuclear power, no matter how costly it is. This is the mission which Dr. Baba had. And he produced nuclear power in this country. And today we are now on the threshold or the dawn of a new nuclear mission. So
Yes.
production of power is the primary objective. But when atomic energy is being used for power production, and the reactor technology is being developed, there are other areas where there are impactful products you can come. For example, the second chairman of the Atomic Energy Commission, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai said, he had a grand vision. He said, nuclear powered agro-industrial complex. I will put uranium or reactor on one side, on the other side, I should get food and food materials, preservation of food, radiation preservation of food. I mean, the whole agricultural field would undergo a brave new change thanks to his concept of nuclear powered agro-industrial complex. He will use power, he will take seawater from that, desalinate it, so there is water input for agriculture. High yielding varieties of seeds are produced by atomic radiation. So, nuclear energy has been put to its intensive use by a maximizer concept called nuclear powered agro-industrial complex. This was a cause which Sarabhai championed. So, all through you will find, right from Baba to Sarabhai, the vision was societal improvement by the latest technology.
I
That's the general idea.
specifically, 100% I agree. So I specifically want you to elaborate on whatever you said right now. So how nuclear science, nuclear technology can be used to empower the farm produce, the farming techniques, reinvent or revolutionize the farming of this country. Because I believe we've been discussing about the farmers and their inefficiencies and imperfections in farming methodologies. So I think that's a brilliant point that you shared right now. I don't know whether in schools we are aware of this, in whether as citizens we are aware of this. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on how these technologies from a BIRC perspective, how you are impacting these fundamental methodologies in farming, and how what are these use cases in real life for a farmer or for the farming community?
Very true. That's the one way, one pathway we should take to clearly understand how the ultimate consumer is
Yes.
benefited by a high technology. I would say we are all aware of the Green Revolution, and Dr. Swaminathan is the architect of that Green Revolution, by which we feel we have now produced more food than we need. So, the Green Revolution is an application of the available knowledge to produce the maximum benefit done. This is a concept beyond that, far beyond that. For example, let us take a nuclear reactor. The nuclear reactor produces power, electrical power, which you can distribute over long transmission lines for our domestic and industrial uses. But Sarabhai's concept was to avoid all transmission losses and end users, use it intensively at the spot of production. So normally nuclear reactors are near seashores, so we need a lot of water, cooling water for this. That seawater he wanted to convert by desalination technology into fresh water. And the foremost input for agriculture is fresh water. And seawater is not usable. 35,000 parts per million of sodium chloride is not fit for agricultural purposes. Converting seawater, salty water, into fresh water is the first objective of the
It
agro-industrial
can
complex.
happen in any month, any time of the year.
Any time of the I mean, we are not dependent on the vagaries of the monsoon.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
are freed from the shackles
That's
of that.
yes. That's
That's one
getting
aspect.
out of the
24 hours by 7, you can
yes.
do. But there are different technologies for desalination. It is not one size fits all. For example, we can have thermal desalination. Heat seawater, the vapor will be free from salt, and you collect that. That is the simplest way of doing it. But there are other more sophisticated energy efficient methods like membrane processes, reverse osmosis membrane. So you use power for that. Pumps are used. Seawater is pressed through a membrane, a polyamide or sodium or cellulose acetate membrane. Then all the salt will remain, and you get enriched salts, which will become the seawater chemicals, which can be used for a chemical industry altogether. So that is one. So water is produced. Now, after producing water, the next important one is phosphorus. We need fertilizers. The NPK, that is, you need ammonia, you need phosphorus, and you need potassium. Let us look at ammonia. Production of ammonia from nitrogen and hydrogen is a very, very energy intensive process. You need huge amount of energy as far as ammonia production is concerned. That energy is provided by nuclear power. Then phosphorus. Now normally we get phosphorus from Morocco. We import rock phosphate and we produce rock phosphate is treated with sulfuric acid, phosphoric acid is produced. This is the conventional traditional way of making phosphorus and combining it with ammonia to produce ammonium phosphate. Now, in the agro-industrial complex, the concept is different. We are trying to use the low-grade Indian phosphate, Udaipur type. Then, in an electrothermal phosphorus, this low-quality phosphate is converted into elemental phosphorus. And that elemental phosphorus, on reacting with water, will give you phosphoric acid. So, the route to phosphoric acid is changed differently so that you get phosphoric acid as a product in the agro-industrial complex. So, you have water, you have ammonia, you have phosphoric acid. So, all the major inputs are produced with the help of a nuclear reactor. It's a grand dream we had. So, that is the,
Where are we at the right now at this dream?
in this dream, although the totality of the dream is yet to be realized. Desalination, we are now absolutely, that we have conquered it completely. elemental phosphorus we have created. So I would say we have made major technological breakthroughs in the fundamental aspects of it. Now it's a question of management and putting things together.
So that means, in your perspective,
Yeah.
when do you see this reality? How much of time and how much of effort we need to see 100% of this dream into reality?
Well, now this is where the time sequence comes. When the dream was made, we were thinking of having an agro-industrial complex as early as possible. In fact, this idea was thought of in the United States also. They also have a program called a Newplex.
Okay.
But technologies are ripe, technologies are viable. Whether we should put it together in which place, so there are political decisions to be taken. Right now, scientifically and technologically, it is a major product. Now, the application of that for societal impact, that's a decision which is taken by politics.
So I think, when you consider the impact it can have on farming, on the agriculture, the input cost
Yeah.
for agriculture, and the challenges that we see in agriculture today. Now, when I always talk about agriculture, I get emotional about students not able to pick and choose farming as a career option in India, because yeah, elsewhere the food consumption is going up, but they are interested in food technology, but basic production, the farming is still in a very, um, I think, primitive stage in India. Sir, we were talking about the farmer suicides, the reality of farming in India, and I can't find any student in my classroom who will opt for farming as a career, because we don't have a situation where we can also advise a child to take up farming as a career option, because he need to sustain, he need to survive, and in the current scenario we know that is not the reality. So, uh, as a nuclear scientist, what you have shared, the grand plan, the grand scheme of how um, effective utilization of these technologies that we already have to impact the lives of crores of farmers in India. And there is a bottleneck, as always. So I was asking the question, why we should promote this actively while doing our science communication, while doing our educational explorations. We should also make this story part of our storytelling process, so that people, the common man, can understand how science and technology can impact those imperfections that still we have in our societies, in our neighborhood. So I think these are the things that you've been doing with your articles in media, in newspapers. So tell me about some of these stories that you have published in a lot of these newspapers. I am a fan of your article in Malayalam Manorama, where you connect science, the multidisciplinary aspects of science, into very simple stories that a common man can connect. So tell me some of those stories that you got so much of appreciation from the common man. You will get the response, you might have got the feedback from common people. So can you share a couple of stories that actually uh, impacted lakhs of people?
You have made two penetrating observations here. One, science storytelling is a way of communicating science, of diffusion of information. I accept that, but many people don't accept. Even sober scientists say science is too serious a thing to be told as a story. So I do not think that most senior scientists accept that storytelling is the means of communication of science. But that is changing now. Second point you raised is also important, very important, that agriculture as a profitable profession is not being prosecuted by the current generation. That's an observation which you said you have seen from your interaction with the student community. This has to change. Agriculture as practiced today is antediluvian. It is practices are obsolete. I would say absolutely out of date. Scientific agriculture is an altogether different field. For example, most of us do not know the water footprint of our agriculture. When I spoke to you about nuclear powered agro-industrial complex, we were thinking of creating water. So most of our products, agriculture products, have invisible water in large quantities. So we should have an understanding about the agricultural footprint where water is involved. For example, rice. Rice is the green water we get may not be sufficient to have as blue water for having a sustainable agriculture. So agriculture should be seen in terms of its water usage and the ability to provide water at the right time, right quantity, right sequence. So everything has to be done by design thinking. So even agricultural students who take their BSc and MSc in agriculture, are they going into agriculture?
No.
So agriculture is not being positioned as a very, very attractive profession. And for example, in the white revolution, which Kurian brought about, then we find the scientific application of an engineering mindset to the white revolution. Swaminathan, being an agricultural geneticist, he also brought this revolution. So these are two great sparks of Indian legacy. The green revolution by Swaminathan and the white revolution by Kurian, they were showing, I mean, I would say they are classic things in the world. And if these models are replicated and taken into larger scale, most of our problems will get solved. It is not that we have demonstrated its capability.
I think it's ultimately the economics that matters.
Very true, very true. Money matters, and money alone matters.
So I think one of the reason why students are choosing food technology
Yes.
or nutrition science is that again economics comes into play. We should also emphasize on as you rightly said, uh, solving the imperfections in the basic farming techniques in the basic agriculture system that we have in the country, not focus only on the food technology, the value addition, the nutrition part of it. Of course that's important, but it should go back to the roots, and then we should try to change the fundamental error, the fundamental flow that we have in this country. I think that will solve a lot of these um, issues, problems that we just stated right now. I foresee generation of students who can authentically and with full confidence opt agriculture as a career option in the next 15-20 years if everything is done right from today. Your statement makes sense, and the scientific perspective is what is lacking today in fundamental um, farming and agriculture. So is it not important for farmers also to be scientists, thinking as a scientist? Who will train them? Why is that we are not integrating farming and the scientific thinking, the scientific perspectives of farming in our curriculum? So I think that can solve a lot of these things. Um, and then of course continuing education is also important. You have to update and upskill the farmers also, so that they start practicing it. Wonderful thoughts.